What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down a route that DBs cannot stop. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it can teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and you would like to train with us this offseason, we are going to be coming out to 14 more states across the U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Next up on our camp tour, we'll be coming out to Orlando, Florida. That camp is completely sold out. But then we'll be coming out to Phoenix, Arizona, Charlotte, Dallas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys are local to one of those cities and would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches, we'd absolutely love to have you there. So check out that very first link in the description below if you want some more information on that. Let's get started with this video. So we are going to be talking about how you guys can run elite double move routes. So this first route is going to be from Xavier Worthy. So one of you guys commented on a video the other day saying I should break down some of his routes, and his routes are insane. He runs some very explosive routes. So we're going to look at some routes from him today and break down some other ones as well. So this is a whip route here. Now this is pretty much a textbook whip route. So a whip route is a double move where you were trying to sell a slant route. So a slant route, obviously like against press, we're trying to cross this dude's face. We're trying to get him to drive on it, and then we just whip straight back out to the sideline. So anytime that you're running a double move, whether it's a whip route, whether it's a post corner, whether it's an out and up, you have to run the first route first. Now I know that sounds like basic advice. I know it's like, yeah, I know that. But how do you actually do that? So when we are trying to get a DB to bite, DBs are taught on double moves to look for a change in three things: a change in pad level, a change in stride, and a change in speed. Just like how you would sell vertical on a normal route, like a 15-yard comeback, it's pretty much the same exact thing. So when you're running it, and when maybe you're like a double move heavy team, maybe you run a lot of whips, maybe you run a lot of sluggos, that's what DBs will look for on film. If you run this slant route, or if you run a whip route, and on the slant portion of the whip, you're not gaining any ground, you start taking choppy strides, that lets the DB know you're not running a slant, because nobody runs a slant like that. If you're a wide receiver and you run a whip route, but you don't fully commit your hips and shoulders to the break until you start to drop your hips or make a change of direction, like if it's on a post corner and you start to round your hips and shoulders to the corner before you make a cut like Worthy does right here, that's an indicator, and that's what a DB is looking for. Also, what they will look for is that change in speed, because nobody's going to run a slant, especially in the red zone, and cross the DB's face, changing their speed. So if you change speed, you change stride, and you start to turn early, that is going to be an indicator. So now on a whip route, obviously it's a little bit more of a unique double move because you have to drop your hips. So normally on a whip, it can be off of more steps, but traditionally it's usually off of 3 steps. So like you break to the outside and he takes 3 steps. So that's his first step. That's his second step with the left foot. And then on the third step, that is like the trigger step where we drop my hips. Now on a whip, it is very important that we have a violent change of direction. When I drop, I'm going to almost think of it like my butt. I am sitting into a chair. I hit that third step, I'm sitting into a chair, and we are trying to bring my chin to my knee. I'm literally trying to touch my knee with my chin. So when you get that low, that helps you put the brakes on when you are actually running in full speed. The whole reason we need that violent drop where you're like, you got a string attached to your chin and you're pulling the string down, is because that is what will slow you down while actually selling the route. So many guys on this whip route, they'll run up, but because they don't have that violent change of direction and they have a lot of speed, they're selling the route. They take like 80 steps at the break point. They start to chop their feet, beat the drum. All that does is give the DB time to recover. You need that violent drop on the third step. And now to get out of this thing efficiently, your outside foot needs to hook around. Your goal should be trying to get your hips and your shoulders parallel to the line of scrimmage. Now, Worthy's kind of in a freaky spot here, right? Where his knee is caved inward, his ankle is facing towards the turf. I personally don't like that position just because that can probably lead to a little bit of knee injury, ankle injury if you step too far outside your frame. You want to really make sure that you keep that step inside your frame. If you take 2 extra steps, you do not have to get out in 2 steps like he does. If you take 2 more, that's completely fine. The violent drop and the selling of the route is what will get you separation and can get you out of there with some speed as well. You getting low like that will shoot you out of the break, because us getting low and having that violent drop creates explosion. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job here by Worthy, snapping this thing off and then running that great whip route. So I'm sure you all saw this route here, but this is that route from Justin Jefferson where they call this route like, there's a couple different names for this route. Like I've heard this commonly called like a jerk route, but usually that's like where it builds off of a whip. This kind of builds off of a return route. So I'll explain. So let's show this example here from Justin Jefferson. So he kind of gives his hesitation, acts like he's running an out, works like he's doing a return route, then just puts his foot in the ground. You could almost think of this like a choice route, maybe an option route, however you want to think of it. I'm sure they have a name for it. So what does this exactly build off of, right? So it builds off of this type of route. Quarterback is to the inside here on this example, and this wide receiver is running something called a return route. So it's pretty much like the opposite of a whip. So the whip we just looked at from Xavier Worthy, he breaks on a slant and then he whips it back out to the sideline. He keeps his hips and shoulders parallel to the line of scrimmage. So pretty much this just builds off of an out route. So if you're a team, like I would say a whip route is probably more common from the outside wide receiver spot. But if you're a team that likes to run a lot of flat routes, a lot of 5-yard outs, especially from the slot, this like return route is a great way to get space. So let's play at full speed. So he comes off here, acts like he's running it out, and then whips back pretty much to the inside. That's that return route. It's the same idea as the whip. Your hips and shoulders still stay parallel to the line of scrimmage. You still turn towards the line of scrimmage, but we are just selling an out instead of a slant or a drag. So that's what this Justin Jefferson route builds off of, right? He works to the outside. Maybe they've ran this before. Maybe they've shown this on film, and he just puts his foot in the ground, which is what gets that DB's eyes in the backfield. There are a lot of people that were saying this wasn't the greatest route in the world, which, I mean, maybe there have been better routes, and they were saying that, oh, well, it's just bad eye discipline from the DB. But the DB's eyes went way inside because of how Jefferson sold this route. And again, a scheme has a lot to do with it, right? Maybe they've ran this before, and you see Cooper Kupp. There's a great example of Cooper Kupp running this route last year, and guess who the Vikings offensive coordinator is? Former Rams coach. So it doesn't surprise me, right? But it's all built. It's all a setup. They probably run a lot of flats with Jefferson where they just get it out to him. Then they probably run a lot of return routes. And then they probably run this jerk route every once in a while or this juke route. So main thing is that we have to sell a route like this in order to create space. So when he makes this, like when he's selling like it's a return, he's got to make it look like a return. Very similar to that whip route. So when you run a whip, what do you need to make sure that you do? You have good speed, you maintain your stride, and you don't start to turn with your body language. You let your hips, you see the drop of his butt, the violent drop of his pad level. Chin goes to his knee because he puts the brakes on. He hooks the outside foot around. Because remember, on the whip, it's really only supposed to be kind of like it's only supposed to be like 2 steps. He ends up taking 3 because he snaps with the outside foot. Totally fine, and people do that on a whip route as well. But he snaps with the outside foot, pivots, hooks. That's what gets his hips parallel, and then he throws one jab. And that one jab, you see how his hips and shoulders are selling. He's actually stepping. It's not a quick rushed step. That's what gets the DB's eyes in the backfield, and that is what can get us some space. So, fellas, to run a good double move, you've got to make sure that we are a salesman. We run the first route first, and you got to understand sometimes that scheme is what can get you open in these scenarios. So let's play this thing again, full speed. Great job by Jefferson selling this route, getting that DB's eyes in the backfield to build off of that return route. And then here's that return route from this Kentucky wide receiver. Maybe not as great of a route as Justin Jefferson's, but I wanted to show that just so you guys could see what that route built off of. Because a lot of people were debating on what the name of that route was. What is this? What is that? And again, it's all based off of that scheme. You run a lot of 5-yard, you run a lot of flats. A lot of 5-yard flats, get the ball out. You run that return route. Then you run that return route that DBs may be thinking about it, linebackers thinking about it, and you hit them with that juke route. And then same thing goes for a whip. Maybe you run a whip route, or maybe you've been running a lot of slants. Then you run a whip, and then we run that juke where you put one step, or that jerk route, where you break down one jab outside, then go run to the inside. Just a way to manipulate a defense. So now, this next example here, this is another route from Xavier Worthy, and he is going to be running a post corner. So on a post corner against press, a lot of people struggle with this because they don't know, oh, should I take an inside release? Should I take an outside release? You can do either one. So this DB is in head-up press. So head-up is when he is directly in front of you. Inside shade is when he's shaded to the inside, taking away the inside. And outside shade is when he is shaded to the outside, like he's lined up further outside, taking away the outside release. So it's all based off of the DB. A lot of times what people try to predetermine is based on the route, that is the release that I'm going to take. So if I have to run a post corner, I got to take an inside release. But if the DB's taking it away, we got to be able to maneuver and be comfortable with an outside release. So let's talk about it here. DB's head up, so he just gives him this little split release, kind of gives him a fake to the outside. Ideally, when it's head-up coverage on a post corner, we would love an inside release. I would love an inside release on a post, so I want to take an inside release on a post corner to try to get that DB to crash and undercut the route. So when he runs this post corner, he takes the inside release here. He breaks to the post, and now it's the same idea. It's the same thing as the whip route. This is why a lot of wide receiver drills that you run that involve cutting, that involve dropping your hips, should be based off of 3 steps. Because a lot of times on your routes, you want to think in threes. So you're breaking to a post, you have a post corner, and out and up, you want to be thinking 3 steps. So he breaks to the post here. Let's count his steps. Here, 1, 2, 3. And you see, he maintains speed, his hips and shoulders are committed, and he maintains his stride. He's able to cut in stride. If he were to break to this post, this DB would not be looking in the backfield if he started to change his speed and slow down or take choppy strides. Now, notice how I haven't talked about the eyes, because I honestly don't think your eyes are the most important thing. I think it helps. Don't get me wrong. It helps. It helps sell the route. It helps get your hips and shoulders committed. I love when you sell with the eyes, but a DB ain't supposed to be looking at your eyes. Your speed and your stride, I feel, are a little bit more important than your eyes, because that will get him to overcommit. But if you're looking at the floor, sometimes that cannot sell the route. I think it's always a good gauge or something good to try is to sell with your eyes. But again, you need to have the other things. You could sell with your eyes all day long, but if your hips and shoulders are drifting upfield and you change speed, it will not matter, and that DB can still lock it up. So now, let's go back to the very beginning. And again, obviously breaks this thing off and gets a ton of separation. But now let's talk about this. What would you do if the DB was outside shape? It'd be very similar to this. You would attack his leverage and take the inside release and just go run the route normally like what you do. But what would you do if he was inside shape? So since he's inside shade, he's trying to prevent the inside. He doesn't want us to run a slant, a post, a dig, but we have to sell post or dig. So what we would do is we would attack his leverage, take the outside release, and try to get him on my inside hip. So when he's at your inside hip at the top, you would break to the post. Hopefully that gets him to want to turn his head or maybe commit, and then we break back to the corner. Ideally, I would actually like a post corner with an outside release, because that puts that DB on your inside hip, and that makes it an easier kind of route to win, in my opinion. But you just got to know, versus press coverage when you're running that double move, it's the same thing. You would run it exactly how you would run a regular post or a regular out or regular slant versus that type of press coverage. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Worthy, freezing that DB, selling that post, getting the DB to commit, and then winning on that corner. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to come out and train with us in 14 different states this offseason, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd absolutely love to have you out to one of our off-season training camps. So very first link below if you're located in one of these cities that we're going to be going to. I'll see you guys next time.